What is going on, Panthers Nation? Day 8 of training camp in the books. It's so funny. When I started this podcast, I said, I wonder how the Locked On Network does a podcast every day. But then you get into the season and you're like, oh, it's very easy, at least content wise, idea wise, to think of content every single day once we hit the preseason, NFL season, training camp. Talk about stuff every day. So that's what we're going to do. I'm not guaranteeing an episode of every single day of training camp, but I will continue to pump out episodes. Big week for the Carolina Panthers. First preseason game. No idea who is going to play. Traveling up to Boston to take on the New England Patriots. Drake May, former North Carolina Tar Heel. Can't wait to see him in action if he does end up getting to play, which I think he should see some playing time, although I've not listened to any of the New England reports. Probably will start tuning into that this week. This week, I'll do the pregame. For those that aren't familiar with the show, I'll do a pregame of the show, a reaction to the show. Likely not going to time those up. I'm still figuring out like what the flow is going to look like in the season, but I will get a preview available. Man, it's already Sunday night as I record this. Game's Thursday. So maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe day of. Last year, I like to have it out a few days in advance. Where the podcast has grown, I'm okay with potentially just releasing an episode day of to get you ready and prepared. One thing I'm going to be doing in the season is releasing what I hope is like a 5-minute version and then an extended podcast version if you want to get in the weeds and hey, learn a little bit more. Let's talk about the scariest thing that happened today for the Carolina Panthers, and that is rookie first-round pick wide receiver Xavier Legette. And I'm going to call him Legette, as folks keep saying Legette and Legette. I've heard everyone in pressers and coaches still calling him Legette. So I'm going to call him Legette, and then we'll run with it. It's what I've heard everyone else calling it. Outside of a few takes. Scary moment as he did, came out in practice. If you follow on X, you get to see these things live. There was a scary moment, though, thinking that he could have a significant injury. We knew it was lower body. He ended up having an X-ray and an MRI. Both were negative, which is a good thing in this situation. And now he is officially day-to-day. So Panthers first-round pick Xavier Legette had an MRI that ruled out a fractured foot. His status is day-to-day. I think if I'm a betting man that we're probably not going to see him on Thursday night, depending on the significance of the injury. Like, I don't know if it's a strain, if it's a fracture. I guess technically not a fracture, but whatever the actual significance of the injury is and how that sits with him, I think the Panthers right now are likely not going to want to risk that. Now, for this episode, I did not clip the Canales interview, the Ike Ekwonu interview, or the Miles Sanders interviews. Those are in post-practice today. I think the other thing that we heard, and again, this is what was reported, Dave Canales, Bryce Young, Dave Canales bringing the team together, Bryce Young bringing the offense together to kind of, hey, let's regroup, let's get reevaluated. And a lot of talk in this offseason about Bryce Young as a quiet leader and not really being vocal, but I do think he is trying to take that next step as a leader without forcing it and being someone that really isn't him. Now, the other hot topic that has come around these parts in the last few weeks is the Panthers not throwing deep balls in practice. And like, hey, we went to one practice. We saw the one deep throw at the end of practice. We've seen highlights. We've seen clips. I mean, the thing with training camp now is things are just exposed. And whether it's the team, which the team's going to post limited footage, but it's a lot of reporters, writers there, they post footage. They're limited to recording in certain times. And then people up in the stands who are recording discreetly, secretively, because I tell you what, when you go to training camp, it was kind of back to that rule era of being very restrictive. Maybe that was the problem for Frank Reich. He just let everybody come in. And if that's the way he ran camp, imagine how he ran the team. No, it's slight knock on him. It's just a joke, though. But I do so you get that footage coming out, but I think it's just that time of year where people over index on every little thing that they see. And sure, you could probably put together between tweets, between video footage, all those things make a pretty good storyline. You could get stat lines. I see, people take stats, predictions, not predictions. We're not predicting stats out here, but people charting down the stat lines, and you come out and you see he was this or this, and this drill, this or this had. I don't know. They don't really get into the yardage, had touchdown, interception. One thing through camp so far, there's only been one interception reported by Bryce Young that he's thrown, which, hey, I guess that's a good thing. But this topic around deep balls and throwing the ball deep, the vertical passing game that can open up this, open up that. I went back and I started to look through the offense last year in Tampa Bay, as well as just general trends in the NFL. And it's funny, as soon as I start a search for vertical passing game, an article comes out in September of last year, posted by ESPN, Brooke Pryor, ESPN staff writer. It's right at the beginning of the season. It says, the death of the long pass are vertical plays trending towards extinction. It's a really good article, but the article talks about a few things in here, and a lot of it's focused on Patrick Mahomes, who we know, best quarterback in the NFL right now, making a case to become one of the greatest in NFL history. But she talked about a play in the Super Bowl, I guess it was 2 Super Bowls ago, where there was an opportunity for Mahomes to make a pass to Valdez-Scantling on a deep ball, chose to check it down to Travis Kelce, take the surefire, 15, 20 yards and keep the drive going. And it goes on to say that they were able to, of course, win the Super Bowl, which you already know they won the Super Bowl. But Mahomes completed just 4 passes of at least 15 yards in his second Super Bowl victory. And he completed 3 of them. So 3 of 4 on passes of at least 15 air yards. So that's yards the ball is traveling in the air. And the reason there's a focus on when we talk about air yards versus just passing yards, like you could throw the ball 1 yard and then the receiver picks up 60 yards after catch, it'll go down to 61 passing yards for the quarterback. So the emphasis really is on how many yards is this ball traveling in the air before it is being completed or caught by the wide receiver. But going down further within this article, really Mahomes talked about the shift for him. And I know as we're here talking about the Panthers, but all this thing ties together. Mahomes noticed that defenses started to play him differently. And now you're going to play them differently when you have a Tyreek Hill, when you have someone who truly is a vertical, over-the-top wide receiver that can beat anyone one-on-one and get over the top. How many Tyreek Hills are there in the NFL? Maybe he is the only one. I don't know that there's many other guys. Yes, there are explosive playmaking wide receivers with different skill sets, but wide receivers that you can sit back and line up one-on-one right now, and I can beat you over the top. There aren't many, and that's the reason I think Tyreek Hill got voted as the number 1 player in the NFL by all his teammates, colleagues within the league. But here we go. Here's what Mahomes said. We faced so many deep coverages where teams were taking away our deep throws. Mahomes said of the 21 Super Bowl, speaking of the 2021 Super Bowl, I had to learn when to just take what's underneath. That's something that he's kind of grown and matured. Well, he said, I've grown and matured. We call deep plays all the time, but it's defense. If defenses are going to play deep, even though I want in my heart to throw it downfield and make those big plays, I'll take the underneath stuff and find ways to move the ball down the field that way. And for me, that's where I sit. We need an efficient offense with someone in Bryce Young that can get the ball underneath. Because, yeah, sure, you want to be able to throw it over the top just to show that you can be that threat. But I think we've like put this like fake idea in our head that wide receivers are lining up every single day, like college football, and just shooting down the field and taking the top off of defenses and, scoring them 50, 60, 70, 80-yard touchdowns. It's not the case. NFL has drastically changed. But from Dave Canales today, tying all this together, that was Dave Canales' point as to why there have not been deep balls this much in practice, at least from what people have seen, that Ejiro Evero has schemed up really well on the back end to not allow it. That's really the nature of it. And now the other thing I'll throw into this mix is when you look at our wide receiving core, I I love what I've seen from Deontay Johnson this far, and I do think he's going to open up a lot of things for Bryce Young in this offense. I do like the elevation of Jonathan Mingo. Adam Thielen's still reliable. You even throw in Jatavian Sanders, who's stepping up at tight end as we have guys sitting out. Not even getting into Amir Smith-Marset or Xavier Legette. But when you look at the skill set of this wide receiver group, like, let's not confuse ourselves to think we've got a Tyreek sitting there or Tyreek-esque player. Deontay Johnson can get open. He may not be taking the top off of the defense every single time, but he can get open and he can get underneath. And you know what he can also do, and what these skill player position groups are going to have to do for Bryce Young in the offense? It's get yards after catch. Yards after catch are a significant part of an offense. And this offense struggled so much last year. There were a lot of struggles, whether it had to do with pressure or just not having the receivers that could get open. The thing that really just made this like so bad is when, receivers did catch the ball, they were not getting yards after catch, or running backs getting an extra 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 yards after a catch is made. That is a big difference in a first down. And going from third down to another first down or whatever the play set is, those things are important. So for me, that's what I'm focused on, and I'm not concerned. There is a lot of folks talking about it. I don't know, for listeners that follow the show, how involved y'all are online with X or YouTube or Reddit, wherever you go to get your Panthers content. But it's probably going to be a topic that you'll hear about. For me, I'm just ready to get into the preseason to see what this offense looks like. What I have seen so far from the time we were there, and the videos, the articles that we've read, it seems like a better offense. I'm not saying they're going to come up and put 30 points a game, but looking at last year's, 12, 13 points per game, I think this is a better offense, where last year it felt so hard. It felt like, every ounce of effort to gain a yard. It just, that like they had to try so hard just to take that next step and get that extra inch. So I'm looking to see a fluid offense. It's going to be able to, hey, show people that, hey, you know what? This team actually is going to be a little bit better than what we saw last year. Hopefully a lot better. Now, transaction-wise, I was going to give you the latest because I recorded earlier today. It's been a busy day. Let's look at the transaction report. Take a second to pull up. I guess it officially has not been reported on the Panthers website, panthers.com, just yet. But we did hear that Jake Luton, quarterback, is going to be coming into Carolina, and he spent some time here, also spent time with the Saints, I think also with Canal. So it's tied around there. There was another one, Jake Luton, we talked about. I thought this is where what I get for not having all my notes pulled up. Here we go. From Alex Zetlow. So this has not been reported directly on Panthers.com, but Panthers have waived injured wide receiver Devin Carter and signed tight end Jacob Hollister. So remember, said we were going to get a tight end, we were going to get a quarterback. Let's see, tight end Jacob Hollister. I am curious to see how quickly Jake Luton will be the wow. Jacob Hollister is a 30-year-old tight end. Looks like most recently with the Raiders. Hey, you know what? He also had some time in Seattle. Makes a lot of sense. The 2022 season with Seattle, actually 19 and 20. So there is, again, ties to Dave Canales in this. Played at Wyoming. I was trying to see what he was placed on IR last year and then released with an injury settlement. It doesn't look like, stat wise that I guess really the better part of his career was the stint with Seattle. The Patriots traded Hollister to the Seahawks for a seventh round pick in 2020 draft. He's waived. Okay. So something to keep your eyes out for. Again, keeping track of all these injuries. His career, 83 receptions, 707 yards, 7 touchdowns. That's through his entire NFL career from 2017. So he was drafted in 2017, or with New England in 2017. Don't know if he was actually. I was seeing if he was actually drafted by them or. Yeah, not selected in the draft. There you go. Wanted to clarify that he was an undrafted free agent. So you got those acquisitions on the roster. Hey, we're gearing up for football. Like football's back this week. It just hit me because I've been in a big groove in this offseason, which y'all know, at least the last 2 months, bringing on a lot of guests. And that will continue, but also to the flip side, to do what I want to do, which is get you prepared for the games, talk about them, break them down. That portion, I do a lot of that solo. I still will look forward to bringing on folks and, helping the show grow. Now, the other thing I'll say as we close this out, actually, one other thing. I'll say the other thing for another episode, so I'll just leave you hanging there. Miles Sanders, again, we got to hear from Icky, so you can go back and listen to Icky as well. Icky's Aquanu talking about, this year, what this is going to look like for him, his preparation. Miles Sanders, though, I think there was just a bad taste in his mouth from last year. And seeing his preparation, the motivation that's there for him, I'm excited, man. And I'm not, if this is a stock, it's like, okay, talking about a $20 stock that you're buying into that was originally like a $50-$60 stock. But I do think it's a good time to buy. And the opportunity, like we've talked about with Brooks, like week 3 or 4, and I'm not even holding my breath that he's even going to be ready by then. But around that time frame, I'll look for Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard to, 1-2 punch, toting that rock. And then the other, Mike Boone. Remember Mike Boone is someone I talked about a long time ago. His name's been coming up a lot. Mike K, the Charlotte Observer, called that out. And so I think that is a significant name to think about when you look at the running backs. Anyways, folks, I did not plan to make this an 18, 20-minute video, but I did. So anyways, that'll do it for today. I'll keep you updated throughout the week. And until next time, I'll see y'all later.